It's easy to see the remake and sequel craze that has been happening for quite some time now, and the resurrection of beloved franchises that people love. Now, I want to focus on films that build upon what we have already seen and build something new out of it. A lot of these sequels and remakes are usually seen in a negative light, but today I want to shed a positive light on these sequels and not measure them due to critical or box office success, solely on the narrative. Now, there have been a number of franchises that have come back from the dead due to studio or audience demand, but the big takeaway here is I want to see story and narrative be pushed, and I want to focus on films that have done that, and I want to show you, the viewer, that it is possible to make a successful remake or reboot. Now, this is not to say that I will not focus on some of the not so successful ones that I think dropped the ball big time on the narrative and the characters that they chose to either introduce or follow up on after the original film or sequels. Basically, just mimicking what was already done in the past and not pushing the boundaries of where the franchise could really go. I think a great example of how you keep a franchise going for as long as it has is the Bond franchise, spanning over 60 years with dozens and dozens of films. And I think a lot of that is owed to Ian Fleming's books, which these films are based on. But the films themselves also stand on their own, and a lot of the actors that they have chosen have brought their own little spin on the character, James Bond. And I think it's what's kept the series so refreshing. The new adventures, the new villains, the new gear. It's a formula, but it works. Now, the first film we're going to look at is a remake of Howard Hawks' original. I'm talking about the 1982 film The Thing by John Carpenter. And I think the biggest difference we can notice is the monster. The monster is a very B-movie type man in a suit, whereas John Carpenter's is a animatronic, organic freak of nature, really, that you can tell is not from this world. Now, John Carpenter's film falls more closely in line with the short story it's based on, Who Goes There? The story follows a group of men in Antarctica who find this alien that can mimic organic matter, essentially. And the film follows closely with Kurt Russell and this group of men who are now stuck with this alien on their station and have to kill it at all costs. The audience is left in the dark about who is what and who will survive. Carpenter chooses to follow the group of men in this station very closely and intentionally leaves certain people's locations out of the film. And I think the reason why John Carpenter chose to do this was so that audiences could be kept guessing who was what, who was the thing, who had been infected. This is a drastic change from the Howard Hawks film, where it was just the one monster, but now it's more of a whodunit and who is who, and everybody's pointing fingers. And I think the best scene to demonstrate that is this scene right here.
We're gonna find out who's the thing. Watching Norris in there gave me the idea that maybe every part of him was a whole. Every little piece was an individual animal with a built-in desire to protect its own life. You see, when a man bleeds, it's just tissue. But blood from one of you things won't obey when it's attacked. It'll try and survive. Now you. That's good. All right, move back. Over there.
I guess you're okay. All right. Put that on and watch them. Now I'll show you what I already know.
It's a crock of shit.
Let's try the Doc and Clark. Now, Clark.
And Clark was human, huh? Which makes you a murderer, don't it?
Palmer now.
This is pure nonsense. Doesn't prove a thing.
I thought you'd feel that way, Gary. You were the only one that could have got to that blood. We'll do you last.
I feel like this scene captures the paranoia of the group the most, where everybody is guessing who is who, and just looking at like the close-ups of some of the characters' faces, and it just screams how much fear that nobody knows what will happen or what's going to happen to them. And I mean, just look at this guy's face, you know. The audience is left guessing just as much as the characters are, which I think makes for an interesting dynamic and watching experience. Now, something that does make for a fun watching experience, in my opinion, is when something feels like we've already seen it before. Unoriginality. A lot of franchises feel the need to try and either one-up or copy and paste what we've already seen, and in the end it just comes out as lazy and unoriginal, to say the least. And I think it just makes for a not so fun movie-going experience when we feel like we are rewatching something that we saw already or that was done better prior. So there is always that risk when it comes to remaking or sequelizing films, but there is a way around that, around pointless storylines and characters and making things meaningful. And I think a good example of that is John Carpenter's The Thing, revitalizing a story that audiences hadn't
You
seen.
know, there's only 3 steps into that ring. Just 3. And tonight it's gonna look as high as a mountain.
Next up, we're going to look at Creed 2. Now, the Creed franchise has become widely successful, with spanning 3 sequels now, and builds upon what the Rocky franchise has put out. The Creed franchise has brought in new and old audiences back to the series in a new way. A young Adonis Creed, who we find out is the son of Apollo Creed, Rocky's first opponent in the first film. Adonis goes through a big challenge in this film, facing off the Drago family. And there's a lot of drama and tension there with those who know the context of what happened between Apollo Creed and Ivan Drago. In this case, Ivan Drago was responsible for the death of Apollo Creed, and Rocky blames himself for not throwing in the towel. Ivan and Rocky share a couple scenes together, and you can feel the bad blood between the both of them. There's a past there, and their fight was one of the most brutal fights in the Rocky series.
Of me? No, there's no pictures of that. Why in Philly?
The big why in this film, I think, makes a lot of sense and is written very well. Ivan Drago and his son have been exiled from Russia after the fight Ivan Drago lost to Rocky in the 80s.
No, that's like 1,000,000 years ago.
Now, as for Adonis Creed, I think it's obvious that his motive can be seen as stubborn but also reasonable, because we know that he's not sure what to do, but he wants to do the right thing and avenge his father and defend his family's name.
First step to building a legacy of his own, and I can hardly wait to see what's next for Adonis Creed.
I lose everything. Country. Respect.
Another challenge that Adonis Creed has to go through is raising a child. Him and Tessa, who was his love interest since the first film, now have grown together and are engaged and move into a new apartment. And now have to take on raising a child, a baby. And a lot of that, I think, is put in place in the story to build up the stakes, to show that there are people relying on Adonis, and that Adonis has a family to support, and is kind of put there to push and lean the audience in a certain way that will dissuade Adonis from fighting, which is what Rocky wants. Rocky doesn't want Adonis to fight Drago because he knows that Drago has nothing to lose, which is fueled by this scene, both of them together, right
Yo,
here.
my pops. Now they parading around talking shit. I can't let that slide. I'm the champ, right?
Yeah,
So I ain't got a choice.
choice. That's the same thing your father said, and he died right here in my hands. Look what his choice put your mother through. You don't want to really bring all that stuff up again, do you, kid?
I thought you would get it. If I don't take this fight, I gotta live with it right now.
That kid was raised in hate. You know what I'm talking about? You weren't. Don't do it.
But you did.
It's different.
It was different.
It's a lot different. I was supposed to be in there with Drago that night, and not your father. And I could have thrown in the towel. I didn't. And I gotta live with that. When I did get in that ring, that guy broke things in me. They ain't never been fixed. It's not worth it. Not at all. Why do you want to fight?
What you talking about? I just told you why.
No, you didn't, Donnie. Why do you want to fight? I get why they want to fight you. I know what they're fighting for. What about you? Listen to me, you got everything to lose. He's got nothing to lose. When a fighter ain't got nothing to lose, he's dangerous.
I'm dangerous.
This film really captures Adonis's frustration really well. And just like his father, Adonis's stubbornness gets him into big trouble with the fight with Victor Drago and breaks his ribs. Rocky called it how it was, and Adonis still chose to not listen. And along with this fight and becoming a father, these are the big challenges Adonis goes through in the film, but in the end, he perseveres. He avenges his father's death through surviving the fight with Drago, both fights, in the middle and at the end. We get a very satisfying conclusion here for the Drago and Creed storyline, following both of their families through hardship and tough times. And in a crazy chain of events, we actually see the reverse of what should have happened at the Apollo Creed fight, with Ivan Drago throwing in the towel for his son Victor Drago, and Creed winning or keeping his championship title. I think the big takeaway from both of these films is that they created a very good why as to their existence, why they made them, why they're continuing these stories. I think they're written in a very well and convincing way, and they put these characters in very real situations. I think that the great thing that these two films do very well is that they push the boundaries of what was there originally and create something new and refreshing. And that is what I think a sequel or remake should always strive to do, and not just rehash and retread old stomping grounds. And that is it for my successful remakes and sequels video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what your favorite remake or sequel is and why.